This is a depiction of the famous Spanish conquistador, Francisco de Orellana. He was supposedly the first European to descend down the length of the Amazon River and live to tell the tale. Once he made it back to Spain, he spoke of amazing cities of white stone, gold, and other riches, and people with a highly developed culture and customs.
The Amazon is a colossal mystery.
The reports were that there was great civilizations in the Amazon.
The Amazon basin is 7 million square kilometers in area. And within it, 5.5 million square kilometers remains almost entirely unstudied by archaeology.
There clearly is a long history of complex civilizations in the Amazon, 100%.
For centuries, scholars believed Orellana was a fraud, but that belief has been crumbling away in recent years. So is there any truth to his story? Let's find out. In the 16th century, Europeans poured into the Americas. In Central and South America, they found various groups of indigenous people, and also amazing ancient settlements made of stone, such as Tenochtitlan and Cusco. And they also heard rumors about a great city laced with gold, hidden deep within the Amazon. This became known as the Legend of El Dorado, and soon they started looking for it. In 1541, an expedition set out to find the mythical city of El Dorado in the area east of Quito. It was led by Gonzalo Pizarro, brother of the famed conquistador Francisco Pizarro. His right-hand man was Francisco Orellana, who had also participated in the conquest of Peru in 1535.
He was the first European to cross the entire length of South America from west to east along the Amazon.
But after just 8 months, half of the men were dead, and the other half were struggling.
Orellana came up to Pizarro and said, "Look, give me the brigantine, give me the boat, and a few canoes, some of the men, and I'll go downstream to try and find some food, and I'll come back in 3 or 4 days."
So Orellana took a posse of around 50 men and descended down the Amazon to look for food. But when it comes to the wild, you always need to expect the unexpected. By the time they reached the junction of the Napo and Maranon rivers, the soldiers figured it would be too difficult to go back upriver, and they even threatened mutiny. So Orellana had no choice but to sail on down. What none of them expected was to witness flourishing civilizations embedded deep in the jungle.
And these incredible, beautiful, complex cities, and they described how elaborate their clothing was and their culture and their agriculture. And so then when the next expedition went back, there was no one there because they had killed everybody with diseases.
Before we go into that, let me just emphasize how epic Orellana's quest really was. Listen to this.
Yeah, and I mean, Orellana was the first person to go descend the Amazon, which the thing that always drove me crazy about that was that they came down the Andes, made their way down the entire Amazon, and then looked at the stars, figured out where Spain was, built a whole other ship, and sailed home.
Imagine how many people would be able to do something like that today. None, probably. So no wonder his adventure was one for the ages. So let's see how Orellana and his compadres made it through.
"So we chose what seemed to us the lesser of two evils," Orellana said. "Trusting to God, we'd go on and follow the river, and either die or see what marvels lay ahead."
And the journey was not easy at all. It took them 14 days to go through 600 miles of river before they found food. At times, they chewed their own leather boots just to stay alive. Orellana was sure they would eventually reach the Atlantic, but he had no idea that it was 3,000 miles away and that they were sailing down the biggest river in the world. Then, at one point, they heard the sound of drums. Imagine their dread as they landed and entered the dense forest to see where the sound was coming from. Orellana and his men encountered many tribes. Some would give them food and shelter. Others tried to kill them, but he made it out alive. And, as he listened to stories of fierce warrior women, it reminded him of the myth of the Amazons. And that is how the great river got its name. When Orellana finally made it back to Spain, he told stories of a sophisticated civilization living inside massive stone cities deep in the jungle.
He reported seeing incredible cities, advanced arts and crafts, millions of people, a thriving culture.
According to him, those people were farmers who found a way to farm the jungle. Actually, the most important account of Orellana's quest comes from Father Gaspar de Carvajal, a Dominican priest who wrote everything down. In addition to describing battles, he also detailed this huge indigenous population as well as their customs.
This is a temperate land and one of great productiveness. They are a people of very highly developed manners and customs.
The sailors believed that there were even bigger settlements inland, but here lies the problem. These massive civilizations would need a lot of food to sustain themselves. In the past century, experts claimed that the soil in the Amazon is too acidic, and that it's impossible to grow food there. Not only that, but there was no trace of the cities Orellana supposedly saw.
And 100 years later, when other Europeans got into the Amazon, they couldn't find these cities.
After multiple failed expeditions to find Orellana's stone cities, mainstream explorers started thinking the Spaniard had been lying about everything.
The view was, again, there was a dogma, there was a preconception. Human beings couldn't have flourished in the Amazon. It's not a resource-rich area. The soils are poor.
So again, hundreds, if not thousands of years of human history got lost. That is until we tragically started cutting down the Amazon forest.
Because of the tragic clearances of the Amazon, because the Amazon rainforest is literally being cut down and turned into soybean farms and cattle ranches. And in that cutting down process has emerged things that shouldn't be there at all.
So now we're finding out that large cities did in fact exist deep in the Amazon. Okay, let us rewind a bit and see how that's possible. If the cities were there, then why didn't the other expeditions find them?
What happened was that the Spaniards brought smallpox into the Amazon. Smallpox devastated the local population because there was no immunity to it. There was a massive die-off. The cities were deserted.
Most of it was due to disease.
Right.
When I had explained that to someone that it was 90% of the people were killed by smallpox, they were like, what?
Basically, the diseases we consider relatively harmless today wiped out entire civilizations in the 16th century. But what happened to their cities?
Within 50 years, they were completely overgrown by the jungle, and that's why they were not seen by the explorers who came in 100 years later. But now the jungle's being cleared, those cities are emerging.
Graham continues to claim that an average Amazonian city had a population of around 50,000 people, which is roughly equivalent to 16th century London.
There were cities of that size all over the Amazon. Wow. Huge numbers of them. And a possible total population of the Amazon that exceeded 20 million people.
These numbers certainly sound far-fetched, but that doesn't mean it's not true. Let's get back to the main problem with this theory.
How did they do that? How did they feed 20 million people in the Amazon? Because it's a fact, rainforest soils are poor. The answer was they invented a soil. And that soil has a name. It's called terra preta. Archaeologists refer to it as Amazonian dark earths or Amazonian black earth. It's a man-made soil. It's thousands of years old. It's full of microbes that are not found in adjoining soil.
Experts claim terra preta is based on charcoal, and it was made purposefully. But how exactly they made it remains a mystery. Either way, this discovery resolves a huge problem and further boosts the theory about advanced civilizations living in the Amazon. It seems there is still much of our history that remains to be uncovered, and I can't wait to see what they find next. Thank you for sticking with me. Join me next time as we dig deep into the life of another famous explorer of the Amazon, Percy Fawcett. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I will see you in our next adventure.